writes an estimate. He says, hey, you underpaid it. You owe us more. Well, we can't just simply take his estimate and recommend more. It's not documentation. Show us the documentation. Help us. You do want to use his estimate. Look for any omitted items. There might be items that are omitted, and we need to put those in. The insured is represented by an attorney. He's filed suit. Can the adjuster meet with the insured without representation? Absolutely not. Any communication from attorneys, public adjusters, any other policyholder representatives, this is all private. You can't forward any of this. You can and should request a letter of representation. So whenever the policyholder is authorized as a party to represent them, they got to do so in writing, okay? An attorney representation, all verbal and written communication has to go directly to that attorney going forward. Now, if you've got a PA involved, you can and still should copy the insured on all emails. Make sure that they're copied on any correspondence. Many times you will copy them. The PA will reply without them copied. Make sure your response has them copied again. If you've got an attorney present, every piece of communication, verbal, written, has to go through that attorney, okay? Let's look at some claim estimates and guidelines. Here's where FEMA spells out everything you need to know for the entire flood claims process. It's all right there for you. All right, great. Did you get that? No. We zip over that, but this is public information for you. What this does is it encompasses everything that we've gone through today. They try and wrap it up and button it up for you. There's a lot of things here that we've gone over. The majority of these things I've already gone over, and you know, this is information that's out there on FEMA.gov. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence as an adjuster and you're doing your homework. You're looking at all the publications that are made available to you. Here's a deck page. We've looked at these in several parts already. That's the entire deck page. Policy information, limit of liability, building information, prior loss information. Know on a repetitive loss that it will start with an RL. A repetitive loss is handled by the National Flood Insurance Program. RL means there have been multiple losses. Claim writing guidelines. We've got this information for you on our website. You start with an invoice, have a narrative, proof of loss, RC if applicable, final report, prelim, mobile home worksheet if applicable, your valuation, your sketch, your estimates, your photos. Here's your invoice. Make sure you have it spelled out from us to the carrier, not from you. It's from Colonial Claims. Make sure you have tax included if it applies. Here's your fee bill, always important. Best part of the claim after you write it is to go see how much you're going to get paid. Here's your current fee bill. Your narrative report, we've got a template for you. We've got several of these. We have virtual templates out there for you. These are updated more or less quarterly. You will want to look on the dash for the most recent narrative report. If you do have revisions, I wanted to touch on this quickly. If there are revisions that are made at the bottom of the report, you have to touch on what those were and be specific. Here's the PDA we discussed, I believe in the second section, the preliminary damage assessment. If the damage is 40% or more now to the replacement cost, you need to include this PDA with your preliminary. Very simple. It looks like a lot of information. There's 4 boxes you need to complete, and you need to submit this. Submit it with the preliminary report. You can get this to them through email. You can get this to FEMA through fax. You can get this to FEMA through mail. They probably accept carrier pigeon. I'm not sure. They want this information. It's very important to get this in as soon as you can. Here's the information for you. We also have this on our website, but we do need to get this submitted with the preliminary or as soon thereafter as we understand that it's going to be applicable. Here's your proof of loss. Make sure you've got the correct policy, the date of loss, the mortgage. Do the figures match? Are we missing coverages? Are we missing a deductible? Make sure they're signed and dated. Has to be dated. Again, FEMA does accept electronic signatures now. Here's your replacement cost. Remember, this is not on a GP. Your replacement cost proof of loss will have the same figures that match to your estimate, that match to your final report page. Make sure that your name as the adjuster and the insured signature are here. Here's your final report page. It has the figures as outlined in your estimate. Do they qualify yes, no, or NA for RC? Did you sign? Do you have your FCN as the adjuster? Make sure you do. Make sure you have the mortgage listed as well. You can never pay more than the value of a building. Here's a good example of that. So the property value replacement is $39,900. You can go build a brand new building for $39,900. but then our estimate says to repair the building that's there is $41,000. We've missed an insurance principle here. To put in a brand new one is $39,000, to repair the one we have is $41,000. You can never have a loss greater than a worth. What's wrong with this picture? Look at the removal protection, $5,400. What did we say the max was for removal protection? $1,000. So we look at this and we know this is wrong. This is an error. If you're looking at your file as a PDF, which is required, you would spot this as an error. It would jump off the page for you. Make sure when you stack your file together and you print it either in SimSolve or Xactimate or in whatever program you're writing, once you stack it as a PDF, you go through page by page and you look and you review the file. You will catch so many errors and save yourself, not only yourself, but our office so much time to catch these errors on your own. Review it as a PDF. It looks completely different than it does in the software. Your software will calculate if the deductible is absorbed. When the loss exceeds the policy limits, the deductible is absorbed. Instead, if the loss does not exceed policy limits, the deductible will be applied. Here's your preliminary page. Again, look at this as a PDF. If you are missing any box, if you are missing any line, you have to go back and put these in. We will catch these. If we miss them, the carrier will catch them. They will come back to you. It adds so much time. We're talking exponential time to go back and have to do these again. Please look at them as a PDF and make sure you haven't missed any section. Make sure you're using the detached garage water height section. So if you had water that was only in the detached garage and did not reach the risk itself, you see the second line there? We're going to include that as the water height for the exterior and the interior. There's a new negative water line depth. This is going to be included on a preliminary report. When you have any elevated building or any building with a basement, you might need to use an interior water depth. So for a basement, use the top of the main level finished floor, okay? And you measure down to the height the floodwater was. That will be a negative number that goes only on your prelim. So for an elevated building, in an A zone, you use the top of the finished floor. In a V zone, use the bottom of the lowest horizontal structure member. If you have questions on this, if you haven't worked an elevated or a basement claim in a while, let us help you. This is an easy thing to remember, to do. It's not always the easiest thing to calculate. Let us help you with it. All other flood depths are going to be positive numbers. The numbers in your narrative, the numbers in your photo captions are still going to all be positive. The negative number is going to be for the prelim only. This information is on our dashboard for you. It's very simple. Just make sure you follow this when you're including your preliminary report water height. There's your APS figures, the ones I discussed earlier. Here's how not to submit a prelim. I got 2 photos, and the guy didn't bother to get out of his car. If you're going to take your photos from your car, at least stick your arm out far enough that you've tricked me and I think you're out of your car. Don't show me your side view mirror, okay? This is an unacceptable prelim, but I like that you took the photo showing me you couldn't get to the risk. So that's okay. We just don't want the preliminary report with it. We want these photos that you see here, but we want the preliminary report cannot inspect photo or document that goes with this. So if you're unable to inspect, use this form. 5 or 6 lines you fill out and include those photos with it. We're going to touch on this again. Prelims are due 5 days after claim assignment. 5 days is far too long. It should be concluded on site, at the very least concluded that night. Include all color photos. I mean, I'm not sure when you use black and white anymore, but all photos. We want all your photos with the prelim. Not all of them have to have captions, but we want them all. It takes more time to exclude some photos and not include them all, and there's a possibility that you've missed something that the carrier wants to see. If you include all photos, it takes out the possibility that we're going to have a file kicked back requesting more photos, and then we've just got exponential emails and calls and problems because you just didn't send them all in the beginning. If you've got an advance, make sure the advance is signed. If your loss notice does not match your investigation of the property, you got to get an underwriting alert. These are all submitted at the same time. Prelim, advance, underwriting alert, get them all submitted at the same time. Make sure when you have this underwriting alert, you state the issue. Here's your advance payment request. Watch for prior losses. do not exceed 25% of your reserves. Now, a reserve is the amount that they're going to write a check for, okay? So if I've got a $10,000 deductible and a small loss, the reserves might be zero. I might write $5,000, $7,000 in damage, but the amount payable is going to be zero because it didn't reach the deductible. That's what your reserve is the amount that they're going to cut a check for. And the advance should not exceed 25% of that reserve figure. Always, always, if you have a potential for a payable claim, discuss the advance with the insured. You gotta get this signed and dated. Verify the mailing address. We have here that there's the potential for a 50% advance. This is virtually never going to apply. Just stick with that 25% advance we discussed. Now, if the insured has got contents coverage or personal property coverage and there's flood damage, it's best to request the advance on that because there's not going to be a mortgage company listed on the contents. The insured owns those outright. If there's a mortgage company, many times there is, on the building, and you're taking an advance on that, the mortgage company is going to be listed on the check. So when the insured gets the check, they cannot immediately access those funds. They have to send that check to the mortgage company who has to sign off and then might or might not release the funds in part or in whole. So that process, depending on the mortgage company, can take days, sometimes weeks, sometimes that money is never received, and it nullifies, and negates the advance in and of itself. If you take it on the contents, if you can, the insured gets the check made out just to them, and they can use those funds immediately. Here's a revision of reserves report. This is on our dash for you. Your reserves are the best guesstimate, not only of the potential loss, but the final amount that's going to be paid out, okay? Now, if those reserves that you initially set change throughout the process, make sure and list why they change and what the current reserves are, and upload this as an interim status. This is a revision of reserves report. This is on our dash for you. This is how not to show a $230,000 reserve. Okay, so we got a big reserve there. We got 4 photos. I can't even see the front of the house. I don't know how big this house is. Is this a townhome? Is it straight up and down? Is it an 800 square foot footprint that's 3 stories? Where did that debris come from? Where are all the damaged contents that you listed? You only sent me 4 photos. Guess what? The carrier's going to kick this back. They're going to email us. Then Colonial Folders is going to get it. They're going to email you. They're going to email the examiner. The examiner is going to pick up the phone and call you. You're going to have to stop what you're doing and accept that call. Then you're going to have an email that comes in. Then you're going to have to stop, go get all the photos, stack them back together with your prelim, re-upload those once you get a chance. Your examiner then has to take that off the dash, send that back to the carrier, all because you elected to send 4 photos instead of the much easier process of sending them all. Please send all your photos with your prelim. I can't stress that enough. These are 4 good photos. Okay, look at all the contents that are damaged. Look at the clear water line. Look at the size of the house. We've got contents out front. We've got a refrigerator that's knocked over, full-size wooden cabinets with water to damage to the top of them. These are 4 photos that work. I would still ask that you send me all the photos. Here's a $100,000 reserve for rugs. We don't know what these rugs are. It would have been more prudent to set a $20,000 reserve with a note that says, based on future documentation, this claim could exceed $100,000. The insured claims these rugs are worth X amount of dollars. Put that in your caption, Let the insured know once you're out there that he is going to have a rug expert. We're going to have an appraisal on these rugs. A lot of these rugs are expensive. I got a couple of rugs. Now, I don't have $100,000, but I got a couple of these rugs. They're expensive. They can be. And it turns out, guess what? He had claimed these were going to be $100,000. The value of all these rugs didn't exceed $20,000. But we didn't know that until we got the expert involved. Be prudent in your reserves. If you get a claim under the incorrect date of loss, what are you going to do? You're going to ignore it? Just let it go? You're going to correct it? You're going to contact the examiner is what you're going to do. You're going to upload an action request to the carrier. Let the carrier dictate what the next action will be. Many times they'll close that loss and open a new loss. Many times they'll keep that loss open, and they will just change the date of loss. But let's let the carrier direct our action there. We've got a loss notice that shows no basement. We get out there and there is a basement. What do? Ignore it? Write it with basement restrictions? Well, you are going to write it with basement restrictions, but you're going to need to upload that underwriting alert just as soon as possible. An underwriting alert uploaded to the carrier whenever you have a coverage issue lets them know, gets it properly rated, and then everybody's on the same page with how the estimate's going to look. This is a great example of an Xactimate diagram. You can see the doors and the windows are drawn in. Make sure those larger openings are deducted. Only the larger openings. Not every door or window needs to be deducted. Make sure your diagram is accurate. Make sure it's to scale. Make sure you've got the rooms named correctly. On a building valuation in Xactimate, when we say check accurate depreciation, it's because a home might be 100 years old. It might have been completely renovated last year and depreciation should be minimal. However, Xactimate many times will default to depreciation based on age. A 100-year-old house might have 75% depreciation, in which case this would be $225,000 replacement cost building and actual cash value of $50,000. When we know that's not accurate, the home was updated last year. So don't always apply depreciation based strictly on age. Here's that manufactured home worksheet that we've gone over. There's that third column. We wanted to show you that these values match the RCV, ACV on the final report page. Here's your building estimate. A tip for you here, they all look like this if you're writing an Xactimate now. The brackets there, you can see that the parentheses will show recoverable depreciation. The brackets show non-recoverable depreciation. So if I'm going through and I'm looking at your kitchen and all I see are parentheses, I know you've done something wrong if you've got full damage because your appliances are what? Actual cash value and would have brackets. So that's a tip for you as an examiner. That's something you can go through and look for as you're looking at your file as a PDF, which that you're going to do now. You're always going to do that. Make sure our bedrooms are listed based on a name or a description instead of bedroom 1, 2, or 3. Your building estimate totals page. Make sure you do not have cumulative O and T, which would be 10 and 11. The O and the P will be the exact same figure. Make sure you have sales tax addressed here. Here's another examiner tip for you, a pro tip. If you look at the recap by category with depreciation page, you will see if overhead and profit was applied correctly. Overhead and profit is 10% and 10%. It will typically be applied on building items, however excluded on carpet, cleaning, appliances, HVAC, any sort of service call, or anything not done by a general contractor. This is the page you're going to find this on. Let me go ahead and tell you, as an examiner, we love this page. We go to this page right away and see if you did it right. If you got an error here, guess what? It's an easy kickback. You now are armed with the facts. You know that you can come in here and you can check these. You can check this area. And if you've got this incorrect, that's going to be something as a PDF you spotted. You're going to fix it and you're going to send that back up to us. There's an overhead and profit provision when the policyholder performs the duties of a general contractor on some trades or repairs. They're entitled to a fair overhead allowance, not 10% and not 7% like they used to get. That is limited to 5% now. You must justify a higher percentage, but you're not going to get more than 5%. It's going to cap at 5% overhead, and an insured cannot make profit on their claim. 5% overhead only. And there's an example of that for you. The insured's facilitating his own repairs. He gets 5% overhead, basically for his time and his expense that he has to take off and facilitate the repairs and the different subcontractors to come out and do the work. Which of the following are excluded from overhead and profit? Cleaning, appliances, carpet, or none, as long as we document that a general contractor oversaw the repairs and that the reasons are verified and that they're explained. Everything can get overhead and profit as long as we document it. Typically, cleaning, appliances, and carpet would be excluded. Here's a contents estimate. Make sure you've got the age there. You always have to have the age. Make sure we've got make, model, serial number. Make sure we have the items in the rooms that they were located in and they were found in. Make sure quantities are correct. Is there any salvage potential? Did we allow replacement on items that had minimal water that could have had a cleaning or a repair or a refinish allowance? Make sure you have those addressed correctly. Not everything that gets touched by flood water needs to be completely replaced. Recommend payment based on accurate damages, a physical change as a result of flood, based on water height, duration. Make sure our depreciation is based on age, condition, obsolescence. Here's an example salvage report in SimSol. Always address the potential for financial recovery of salvage. A salver may not take possession of any property before the loss is settled. You, as the adjuster, or we, as the adjusting firm, may not act as a salver on a loss. Please don't steal the salvage.